I want to welcome everyone to this week of In the DAW with our very special guest, Faux Tales. How you doing, man?
I'm fine, how are you?
Good. We're super happy to have you. We're going to be breaking down your song, Beacons, here in a second. At Multiplier, he can't make it today. He's in France on vacation. And one final thing before we get started, I just want to remind everyone about the In the DAW and Behind the DAW Patreon. It helps fuel In the DAW and Behind the DAW so that we can keep bringing these episodes to you in the best fashion possible, and it gives you a chance to be able to get to know us better and for us to get to know you better and to be more a part of the series. So make sure to check that out. Links in the description. The beginning piano/string sound. What is it? It's so beautiful.
It's an actual piano.
Like you recorded the piano? Like it's not like a contact instrument?
No, it's absolutely real.
No way. Like it was a legit piano.
Yeah, I was really looking for a piano for a long time because I played when I was young, but didn't have a proper piano in my studio. And I was looking for one with a really, really mellow sound. So it was hard to find one, but I found this. It's like a used small piano. It's perfect for what I want.
So is it in your studio right now? Like you have access to it for the rest of your life?
Yeah, but unfortunately I'm at home right now because the internet in my studio really, really sucks. It's sitting like on my right side in my studio.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And it's permanently plugged in, so whenever inspiration strikes, I can sit and record.
I see that you also have the Native Instruments Complete Control. Or do you use it more than your piano, the piano that you bought? Or
yeah, I definitely use that more. I mean, normally when I write a song, I sit at the piano and record it just as a sketch. And then I build the whole structure. And most of the time, I replace the piano with a sampled one so I can shuffle around the notes, the MIDI stuff. And then if it's final, I'm gonna re-record the piano.
The Complete Control is more so just for like getting ideas down. And then when it's game time, you go to the real piano. The intro kind of ARP that you have in the background, what is that?
That's actually the two-pitter, Roland 2-pitter 6, which also sits in my studio. And it's like a really old 80s synth, which fortunately it has MIDI. I just sent those ARP notes to it and recorded it. You can hear like the noise.
Yeah. Like that's actual noise from it, right?
Yeah. I mean, if there is like a Valhalla shimmer on it to give it like a stereo width and some reverb, if I turn it off. Sounds really... yes, I think I run it through the RE501 space echo, like an actual tape echo.
Wow, dude, that is beautiful. So you're like you're a big supporter of like analog and like actual gear and stuff, right?
Yeah, if I can. I mean, it's always a decision to make because if you record something, it's hard to change it. So if you use it like here as a pad, it's not a big problem. But if you do like chords and want to change it again, you have to re-record everything. And that's the disadvantage. Maybe sometimes it's even an advantage because those days you have like unlimited sound. And if you record something like an actual instrument, there are a lot of decisions that are being made for you. And yeah, it maybe pushes you forward. So you don't have to scroll through presets. You have like a hands-on stuff going on and then you have it.
So the big building orchestral drums. So I'm assuming you don't have orchestral drums, do you? Like actual physical orchestral drums.
When I wrote the song, I still lived in Berlin, and my neighbor to my studio back there was like a percussion player who was playing with symphonic orchestras and doing like all this contemporary classical stuff like Xenakis and stuff. So he has those big drums.
Oh my God.
Some of those drums are actually recorded. If we listen to this, I think... there is like a massive big drum.
What?
That's an actual recording.
This is like the only episode we've ever done where there's like this much like live recording. Like it's not just samples and synths.
Like he also did some snares with brushes, which come in here.
What? Oh my gosh, dude, this is insane. So is that the only part in the song where there is those big drums, like those big war type drums?
The big one is only here because it's like that part has a lot of space. And apart from that, I used some like one shots we recorded just as an impact.
Oh, gotcha.
Like,
so did you, with that right there, did you just record that drum hit and then just drench it in reverb kind of a thing?
Yeah, exactly. There is some Valhalla on it. It's compressed. There are those marching snares coming in.
Did you record those too?
Yeah, he also did a hi-hat.
I guess the question should be, is there anything in here that's not like a live recording?
Yeah, a lot.
Oh, good.
You asked about the beginning. There is like this string sound.
Yeah, that thing.
Which is really quiet. And that's from a company called multiplier.audio. They do like orchestral sampling. And they have those libraries called evolutions, where they record, I think, really long sustained strings. They have like a slight movement. It's an actual person playing a note for a really long time. So it's really nice for a pad.
That's so cool.
That's this string thing.
That makes me feel better that like you actually didn't record that, because like I never record anything.
For example, recording a piano can be really, really hard because it's so hard to keep it in tune. Because for this kind, I mean, for jazz or blues, it's sometimes nice if it isn't perfectly in tune. But for this kind of music, it has to be perfectly in tune. And then you have to mic it so it sounds really good. That takes a lot of time. If you're lucky, the result is good. But often the samples are really good as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. As far as your Super Saw sound design, I think that's the big meat of the song that everyone truly, truly loves. Yeah, all right, if we take a look at that.
I always bounce them to audio so I can like make those little glitches and cut tails off when they need to be silent. All the three saws together sound like this. I think they were made in Serum, and it's really, really basic. A lot of saws, unison. There's like oscillator A, which is playing just the default saw wave. And there is like the B one, which has this tuner saw, which gives it a bit of a character. Then there is also the noise oscillator running. And some distortion reverb inside Serum, but this patch is really basic. Yeah, and it has some distortion on it as well. Valhalla Shimmer.
So you have the Super Saw and the actual element of the Super Saw being the actual Super Saws. Is there other elements that you add in that aren't the Super Saws but add to the Super Saws?
Lots of things. There is like a pad sound, which is one layer. That's just like the reverb tail of the other part, just looped and run through some reverb and bounce down. And then I have another layer, which is a guitar. And then I have another layer, which is actually pretty funny. I did this for the first time. Somebody somewhere mentioned that they use a lot of pulse stretch, this freeware program where you can stretch a sound, like make it 20 times slower. I bounced out this whole thing without drums and stretched it out 20 times and put it again on top of it as a layer. So that sounds like this. It's also pretty compressed with OTT, of course. And I had to, because it was stretched out like 20 times longer than it was, I had to cut it back up to the original chords. So it was a really long audio file and I had to find the correct chord.
When you use Pulse Stretch, is it the application that you download on the computer or the plugin version that's now available?
Like the app.
So there is a plugin now. You can actually use it inside of Logic now. It's super cool.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, just like it's super new. I tried it out the other day and it works just as good or better as the original Paul Stretch.
If I like go through the layers, it's pretty fun to hear how much like every stack adds. For example, if I start just with the Super Saw, like the saws, I often use like a basic Super Saw like this as a foundation, but I always try to give it some flavor with elements from the track, like I did with this Paul stretch thing, or this short sample here.
Cool, man.
This guitar thing here, that's a thing I also love to do. It's this like post-rock inspired guitar sound where you just like pick like a madman. Yeah, if you stacked all this, the sound is getting really big. I get the Super Saw question a lot. Often people think that it's just one patch, just like one synth, but it's not like that. If every instrument is playing the same notes, it's gonna be cluttered. So a really good thing is to let like each note of a chord is played by a different synth. For example, that guitar pad here, this pad is like a drone which stays on two notes. And then the saws are playing all the notes, so it's distributed.
For those who don't understand what he's talking about, because most people, they have a really hard time with music theory. But basically, you know, like if you had a chord, you had a major chord, so it was playing the 1, the 3, and the 5. Instead of having one instrument play the 1, the 3, and the 5, you'd have one instrument play the 1, one instrument play the 3, and one instrument play the 5. Spread across the spectrum, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. I think I saw an episode with Crystal Skies.
In the past, we did just triad stacks for like one individual synth, play just a Super Saw sound. But for some reason, we just decided to just like put one note for each frequency to kind of make our just a big chord out of just weird sounds.
And they did this in a really extreme way, like every instrument was only playing one note. In this case here, I have a Super Saw which is actually playing all the notes, and it's just topped with different notes. I also noticed about Super Saws is like to get this typical Super Saw sound is maybe to get those voicings with like, you just don't play like just the 1, the 3, and the 5 of chord. You add maybe like major 7 or like a ninth. Mm-hmm. You can hear it with this chord, for example. You have like lots of stacked notes. So instead of playing just the G minor, we have, I added, for example, here it's the A, and it's also like spread out. So I think that's also a point of that Super Saw sound lots of people are seeking.
You're the first person I've ever done this with. So I went and looked at where this song is uploaded, right? It's uploaded on, what was it? It was on Mr. Suicide Sheep, and I'm sure a bunch of other channels on YouTube. And I went through and I looked at people's comments and the questions that they asked. And so these are some of the most common questions or funny questions. Or first question I got was this song influenced by Zelda?
Not really, no.
Okay. What was this song influenced by?
I mean, when I started it sounded really different. It was in a different time signature. Wait, maybe I can drag it in here so you can hear it. That's what it sounded like before. And so then I started to build this. I was thinking about releasing it like this and finishing like this. But somehow I wanted to get this epic feel out of it. So I started put it in 4/4 and build a drop and stuff like that. It wasn't inspired by anything in particular. I just wanted to have a cinematic track, which has like a dark feeling to it, but also have some kind of like hope. So not too dark.
Next question is, I thought Faux Tales retired. Did you say that? Did you say that you were going to retire?
No, never.
What are you guys thinking? Why would you ever think that? He's alive and well and making music. These guys. Next question is at 1 minute and 28 seconds. There is a kind of stepping down sound. I'm assuming it's a melodic sound that's kind of going down. And the guy wants to know what it is and what the term for that is.
So maybe it was like this choir thing.
I think that's what he's talking about as well.
That's another like pulse stretch thing. I just put a vocal from another track I've worked on in pulse stretch and stretched it out. It sounded like this without any effects.
You've been really liking that pulse stretch, huh?
Yeah, I really get into that. But I think that's the only project I've ever used it. So it's like this stretched choir sound. And then I EQ'd it. I think what this stepping sound is, I use this a lot. That's an old filter. It's by Sugar Bytes. What it does is you can actually filter, but I used it as a tremolo. And the tremolo rate is modified with an envelope.
I see.
So it's getting the rate is modulated. I think this is this choppy sound like thing that is happening.
To answer this guy's question, I think the general term for like something like this, where it's coming to the end of a phrase and you kind of throw in a sound that kind of catches the listener's ear, kind of like brings you back to the downbeat of the first part of the phrase. I guess the actual technical term is it's called a turnaround, right? It's something that you put at the end of the phrase to turn things around to get to the beginning of the bar. As far as like what it's called when you're doing this with the vocals, it's just volume automation, right? That's all it is. It's just you're just automating the volume, so it's kind of choppy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm just modulating the rate of a tremolo, which is basically, as you said, volume.
Nice. The final question from the YouTube viewers is, why does this song make me cry? Why does it make him cry, Timo?
I have no idea, honestly.
It's kind of the question behind like music in general. Like, why does music elicit any form of emotion at all? It's actually really like, if you think about it, it's really strange that organized sounds, like songs that are organized in a certain way, release certain chemicals in your brain and make you feel a certain way. It's really weird if once we like kind of think about it, but like it's really cool at the same time. Anyways, nonetheless, and then my final question for you, good sir, is if you were to wake up tomorrow, everyone forgot about this song and you wanted to re-release it, would you do anything different? Would you want to change anything?
Absolutely not. I'm so happy when I finish a song. I consider it done, and it's like a snapshot of that time, and I can improve in my next song.
Anytime there's something that you would want to change in the song, it's not necessarily, you know, that you regret it happening. It's just you want to take that new information and then translate it to the next song, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. I had once this idea of I put out an album and suddenly I didn't like the mix of it. So I went around and asked my distributor if you can like update the files, the new mix, and worked on a new mix. And after like 2 weeks, I listened to both mixes and like the newer ones were even worse. So it's like 2 weeks wasted. And I was like, maybe I should just let it be.
Is that even possible? Like if you put something out and like distribute it to like iTunes and Spotify and stuff like that, can you update the audio? Is that a real thing?
Yeah, you can.
What?
Actually, they charge you a little fee. Most of my older stuff is like self-distributed. It's really easy to do, yeah.
Do you just do it through like TuneCore or like CD Baby, or what do you distribute to?
Yeah, it's a pretty similar service, but it's based in Switzerland and called iMusician.
iMusician, okay, gotcha. That is so cool. If you wanted to, you could go and update the audio with Beacon and just replace it with audio of like you laughing. Like in
I
theory.
could, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Final part of this is, usually there's more of us, but would you like my feedback on your song?
Yes.
Dude, this song blew my mind. Like, it was so good to begin with, just like listening to it. Of course it was so good, but like once we started dissecting it and I actually saw like all the live recording elements in it and everything, and just like how dude, it's so good.
That's so kind of you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, man.
The only thing, I mean, like, and I've mentioned this in other things, and this really in other episodes, and this totally just comes down to personal preference. In the drop, you know, you have your super saws and everything, and like as we were just looking at, like with like your turnarounds, you had that little vocal chop and like little sound design things in there. I like that a lot. I love those little things where it's like the super saw is the main sound. It's like, here I am, I'm king, but let me show you everyone else around me. And so 3/4 of the drop is a super saw, and then like 1/4 of the drop is like, you know, like the little sound design, little cool like ear candy. That's just my opinion, because I really like that kind of stuff.
One funny thing I notice when I discuss projects with people is that when they're starting out, they always ask me, what plugin do you use for those glitches, for example?
Yeah,
stuff like this. And that's a question I had when I started with electronic music years ago. I always thought there is like a magic plugin, but if it's cool, it's often just like cut up things and done by hand. There is unfortunately no real shortcut. I mean, there are cool plugins like Effectrix or Deep Blue Glitch.
How did you make those sounds? Or are they just samples?
I think those here are as well made of those pulse stretch.
That is so
things.
Cool.
But everyone is like, one is bit crushed, one is filtered a bit more. So those little snippets, they are also panned differently. So it gives this stereo thing. And I often also like if a super saw reverb tail is here, I cut it and reverse it so it gives this sucking sound like this one here.
Kind of like reversing into the next phrase.
Yeah, exactly. And often if I do this, I totally go overboard, like do this for hours and then let it sit for like a day and delete all of those, like maybe 80% of those glitches because they don't sound really good, and keep like 20% in it. And I think that's when I watched other episodes, I laughed because lots of other guys said exactly the same thing, that they go totally overboard and then let it rest for a moment and rework it again.
So if you really like that style of like, because kind of the common thing that I've seen in this song is that you kind of like that style of like getting something super extreme like pulse stretch and like mangling something and then going in and find the little nuggets of glory. Isotonic is another company, but yeah, they both make plugins. Isotonic, this is hard because you don't have Ableton. But you do have Ableton. What?
I have it, yeah.
Oh, okay. So Isotonic, we just barely did an episode of Last Heroes, and Isotonic, they sponsored the episode, and on that episode, they have this Max for Live device. It's called Iota. It's a very similar like theory to pulse stretch, where it's like you throw an audio file in there and it mangles the crap out of it, and then you go through, you know, like you recorded a resampler or whatever, and then you find the little nuggets of glory. The cool thing about it, the reason why it's unique, you know, that it's different from like pulse stretch or whatever, is that it's a granular spectral looper. Like I can't even begin to understand what's going on, but basically you drag an audio file in and you select a portion of that audio file, and it shows you the spectral analysis, and then you can loop certain parts of the spectral analysis and have a bunch of different loops playing at one time, and it creates just like this. It's so weird, man. It's so cool.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I love granular synthesis. Yeah. Actually, in this track, I mean, there aren't a lot of those classical dubstep wobbles. I have some little snippets of bass in here, for example, this one.
That's beautiful.
And what I do for those bass sounds, I often get this question related to Atlas. That's another track of mine, which has more of those like science fiction sounds in it. What I normally do for that is that I just take a synth and go wild with it, like I did here. And then I just search through the whole audio file, just find one little snippet that fits the track. One trick to quickly go through those things is you can like slice this up in Logic with the scissors and then convert this into a sampler. And that's pretty cool because it makes you a new instance of the Logic sampler, and then you have every slice on one key. So sometimes if you play the song and want to find cool combinations, that's pretty useful.
Dude, that's so cool. Like for the Ableton users, it's called Slice to MIDI, but like the concept is so underrated because it's so amazing. We are coming to the end of our episode. Is there anything else pertaining to you? You know, is there other songs that you want to push that are coming out? An EP, a tour? Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we end?
Yeah, actually, I have a song coming out on a Friday. I did with the ESL Birmingham in mind. It was a big gaming event on which I performed the opening, and that one will be out. It's already out on the Arcadium YouTube, but it will be officially out on all the other channels on Friday. And I'm really looking forward to that because it's a really big orchestral heavy track. And I'm also working on an album, but that might take some time. Another song coming out on Lowly Palace, but that will be in August.
That's still
and
awesome.
That's going to be a really atmospheric song. Pretty unusual for me because it's going to have vocals.
And then final question from me to you is, did you have a good time?
Yeah, of course.
Huge thank you to Faux Tales for doing this. If you want to participate and listen to the song more, would you like them to go to Spotify and put it in a playlist? Would that be the most efficient way?
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Awesome. If you want to support Faux Tales, go to Spotify right now, put Beacons in a playlist. Also, thank you so much for coming on In the DAW, everybody, and watching. This episode of In the DAW is brought to you by the In the DAW Patreon, which can not only enhance your In the DAW experience, but your music production experience as a whole. Some of the things with the Patreon are: your name shows up in every episode. Once a week, you can send me and Multiplier a song, and we will give you feedback on your song. If your music is up to par, we can feature your music in an episode of In the DAW. You can get monthly or weekly private production lessons from me. And if you're an absolute super fan of In the DAW, you have the opportunity to come on In the DAW and interview legendary producers with Multiplier and I. If you're interested in participating in the In the DAW Patreon, there is a link in the description of this video, or you can go to patreon.com/In the DAW with 3 W's. Thank you so much for watching this episode of In the DAW. We really hope you enjoyed it. Did you enjoy the questions that we asked, or is there other ones you would have liked? Make sure to check out these other episodes we have on the screen. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on In the DAW.